breaks, now when I say breaks, this means what they call, technical term is rest period and meal breaks. And day of rest. So non-exempt employees, hourly employees, are supposed to, when they take their break, they have to be literally resting. They may not do any work. They may not be taking a call. Someone cannot be coming over and asking them a question when they're on their break or when they're on their lunch. If that happens, it's like they didn't take it, okay? And the minimum is 10-minute rest breaks, rest periods for every 4 hours of work, and a unpaid meal period for everybody that works 5 hours or more in their shift. Now, how this works is they are now allowed, people are allowed to leave premises during their break times, any break time. And this gets to be an issue if you have a crew that you're taking off site. Like I have a client that they have a moving company. What do you do when they're, going to move furniture for somebody and it's time for their break? So they found a strategy that works for them. I have another client that they do tree trimming and it's an arbor care company. And they were worried about that too. They were like, okay, if we let them go, they're never coming back. So what you have to do is you have to carefully, it takes a lot of discipline, and your management, whoever's supervising that crew, needs to be up to speed on what they can do and what they can't do, and also to, when we're writing their handbooks for them, we just put a policy in there that says they have to be back to their work site immediately following, otherwise they get disciplinary action, which could be, you can pick whatever that's going to be. But here's what happens. If you don't give them their breaks as they're supposed to have them, per law, you have to pay them 1 hour of pay for every break that they missed, okay, per day. That's per day. And employees cannot say, oh, I don't want it. No, because I've had this situation where some employers were giving, because the employees wanted it, oh, I want to get it off an hour early, so I'm not going to take any of my breaks, and I'm not going to take my lunch, but I'm going to get paid for 8 hours. And here's the problem with that. It's not allowed. Now, if an employee does want to not take their lunch, they can do that if they're not working more than an 8-hour shift, but that has to be in writing and it has to be put in their employee folder, and you have to keep it there. And then they have the right to take that back anytime they want to. But here's what happens usually. They say, oh, we don't want to take the break, but then they take their breaks. And then you're losing out on an hour of productive time. And so, it takes a lot of, you have to pay attention. So how much do you really want to do that? Because you probably have other things to do. Yes, Alice?
So sometimes too, they add their break with their lunch. There are 2 breaks with their lunch.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So can they do that?
No, they cannot. Not legally, because here's what happens is the employer's liable for an hour of pay for every break. So, and by the way, these 10-minute rest period breaks, those are paid breaks. That means that they don't clock out and you pay them for taking that break. But meal breaks can be unpaid unless you're generous and you want to pay them, you can.
So
now,
they could go outside.
They are allowed to.
They could leave
They're allowed to go off premises. And I can see why people want to do this, because if they smoke cigarettes, they want to go have a cigarette, and most employers don't want them hanging around the front door or the back door, right?
Now, can you leave on your car? Can you go someplace?
Yes, you can.
Oh, okay.
There's nothing that says you can't. You have to be back though on time.
Right.
That's the thing.
So
Okay.
10-minute break is coming how many hours?
Pardon me?
10-minute break is coming how many hours?
It should be so if they work an 8-hour shift, it would be every 2 hours. Yeah, so they worked, say they start work at 8 o'clock. Their first rest break would be at 10, and then they would have lunch 2 hours later, and then they have 2 hours later, they have their a 10-minute rest break. Now, this day of rest thing, this is new. There was a court case where somebody sued Nordstrom's because they said, they had them working every day. They never had a day off. And if you take a day off, then you get dinged because then you have bad attendance, and away we go. And then there's problems from an employee point of view. So what they decided was if an employee works 6 hours or more in a shift, they are entitled to 1 day off in 7. So an employer cannot schedule them to work 10 days in a row with no day off. And that's why it's called day of rest. By the way, I forgot to tell you guys, if you want to ask questions, feel free.
So, I remember I used to work retail, and I worked like Sunday all the way through Saturday. Sunday would be a new week, so sometimes I would work Sunday.
Well,
So
they're not.
It's like 7.
Yeah, this is why. And see, you notice this is retail, right?
Yeah.
So those are probably the ones. Probably food service, retail, and hospitality people are probably most impacted with this. But you notice this doesn't say in a week. This says in 7 days, because then there's, the employer cannot manipulate what the work week is.
So they could maybe have them work Wednesday to the 7-day period could be Wednesday to Tuesday, and they have to have 1 day off between that period of time.
Yes,
Not just Monday through Friday or Monday through Sunday.
right. Okay, so this is the partially commissioned employee breaks. This was one for the employer. No, I take it back. This is the employee had the Vaquero versus Stone Edge Furniture. This was in the Court of Appeals, and they went back and they said, yes, they get paid for their rest breaks too, because partially commissioned means they're on an hourly wage and they are making commission on inside sales. And so they were treating them like a exempt employee, and like they didn't have any rights to breaks or lunch or any of that. And so they said, oh no, you're gonna pay them.